you've now lost a general election. He has an uncontrollable narcissism. Yes, but he is talking about insurrectionists. No.
Jessica Tarlov had to spar with MAGA cultist Charles Payne in the aftermath of the New Hampshire primary, where she had some words about Donald Trump that left him absolutely triggered. Now, this comes in the wake of Trump being rather upset about Nikki not immediately conceding following this primary election, insulting her dress, threatening her to be investigated, and more. And well, Jessica sums it up pretty nicely.
He has an uncontrollable narcissism and rage about him when he feels insulted, and it's appealing to the base. They say, we love it, he's a counterpuncher. But you've now lost a general election. You've presided over the loss of the Republican Senate, the Republican House. The abortion, it's been on the ballot 7 times. Democrats have swept it in all of that, and he has not moderated at all. And frankly, I don't think it's in him for him to be able to do it for more than 20 minutes.
Now, keep in mind all the facts she just laid out when Charles Payne responds. Despite losing both the Senate and the House with hand-picked Trump candidates, losing the general election in 2020, and getting swept 7-0 in ballots with abortion on it, the increasingly small wing of MAGA, and it is small with 50% of Iowa not even voting for Trump, and Haley getting 44% herself in New Hampshire, still think his demeanor is some sort of a winning strategy.
He won. He became president of the United States with that same personality. I don't think that, listen, I think it's worse with Biden calling MAGA. Biden's anger and vitriol and hatred for MAGA is far more worse than President Trump's individual battles with someone who crosses him. That is something that is really detrimental to this country, that the president of the United States despises half of the United States. President Biden, I said earlier today, about a week ago, I had a segment coming up, so I Googled Biden hates MAGA. Nothing but articles after articles after articles. He has expressed hatred for half of the country.
Those articles?
It doesn't matter.
It absolutely does matter, because when you look at it, they're almost all from Fox News or right-wingers trying to stir up the same false narrative as him. 7 million more people voted for Joe Biden than Donald Trump. He got less votes than Hillary. Winning on the Electoral College is not a majority of the country, and you don't need 50% of the country to do so either, which he did not have, and he's clean lost every election since. He can't even get 50% in his own Republican primaries, so to try and describe MAGA as anywhere close to half the country is disingenuous at best and delusional at worst. I think he's closer to delusional. And to just drill home this point, in his speeches, Biden always is sure to point out how MAGA is not only just not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans. He preempts every attack on MAGA by saying this and distinguishing them from the right as a whole. However, Donald Trump speaks in broad generalizations when he talks about the left, calling them fascists, thugs, pedos, Marxists, criminals, labeling them as vermin, and oddly similar speeches to Hitler. And the same people who act like Biden is divisive cheer on this rhetoric from Donald Trump.
Say that he's demeaned half the country. First of all, it's 74 million people that voted for Donald Trump, and he is explicit every time he talks about the MAGA movement to say that this is a subsection of the Republican Party, which is borne out in elections when you see people voting against Donald Trump. And this idea that
but what about the people voting for him? What about the people voting for him? He gives teleprompter speeches. I mean, you have to understand.
Yes, but he is talking about insurrectionists. Yes, he is.
No.
Why is he talking about January 6th? And he says
Donald MAGA like it's a swear word. Instead of a slogan.
If you get called regularly,
he's the
which
president
Democrats
of the United
do,
States.
thugs,
he's the commander-in-chief,
pedophiles.
Why can't he call the border a crisis while he's denigrating and castigating Americans? No, the voters are talking about that, Jessica.
But excuse me, point is about demeaning voters.
And watch how quickly they turn that to a 5v1 and move the goalposts without letting her speak. These are the people who tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. These are the people who sent pipe bombs to Democrats, cheered on Nancy Pelosi's husband getting attacked and his head bashed in with a hammer, and we're supposed to treat them like rational members of society? The gross thing about politics is it seems to turn a bunch of bottom dwellers into absolute maniacs who want to act bloodthirsty about it like it's a sport or competition and not something to better our country. People will say things like, you can't stop what's happening, or oh, we're gonna destroy you. And the worst part about Trump, about MAGA as a whole, is that they turned politics from something about bettering society and those those within that society to a blood sport that is about nothing but owning the other side, where policy and effectiveness just no longer matters. Could you imagine, just in the realm of possibilities, for those of you older than 18, right? Could you imagine 10 years ago, somebody convicted for sexual assault, by the time the election rolls around, guilty of fraud with 91 charges, also has been guilty of housing discrimination against people of color in the past. He's tried to pressure people to overthrow an election and still lies about it to this day. A news station lost the largest defamation lawsuit in history for spreading his lies about that election. Could you imagine them actually running for president 10 years ago and polling what? What would they poll? 0. They'd poll negative. They poll negative. That's what they would poll. But because some people are so enamored by his personality, they're so entertained by owning the libs, they don't give a damn about what's best for the country or even the slightest knowledge of politics and how these things work or who's effective and who's not. Here's a tip for people who are surrounded by Trump supporters. Ask them to name 3 good policies he passed. Most of them can't even do that. They're just going to point to vague things. They're going to say, oh, he kept our economy strong, brother, and our borders safe. Well, okay, how did he do that? What's the policy he passed that did that? Oh, it's not about the policy, brother. He was just a strong leader. Really? The 70-year-old, the chubby orange dude who mocks people and couldn't tell his way around a room. That's the strong leader. You'll find that these people don't have much logic to their choices. It always just comes down to vibes and aesthetic and who they think is cooler.